I'm always opposite. Well, welcome to Hello Chaos. This is a weekly podcast exploring the messy and chaotic lives of founders, entrepreneurs, and innovators. Hello Chaos is one of the many resources brought to you by Orange Whip. That's Orange Whip, WIP for work in progress. Orange Whip is a multimedia company dedicated to serving founders and entrepreneurs in affiliate cities through hyperlocal online platforms that are designed to inform, inspire, motivate, and create connections to help founders along their journey. Orange Whip is part storyteller, part how to guide, and part navigator. We are the megaphone for founders telling real, raw, and honest stories. And it's why our mantra is where aha meets oh shit. My name is Jennifer Sutton, aka JJ. It's my nickname. I'm the founder of Orange Whip and your podcast host today. We record live every Wednesday at 3 p.m. and then publish across all the podcast platforms this coming Sunday. So check us out on wherever you get your podcasts. On our podcast today, we want to welcome Joe Self, a communications consultant, author, and teacher of Clifton Strengths. Looking forward to this conversation. Welcome, Joe. Thank you for coming on to Hello Chaos. And speaking of chaos, I'm saying this is our 50th episode, but I thought last week was our 50th episode and said it during we did like a huge, rah-rah milestone. It was not. After we got off, somebody came in and was like, and our team would, Jennifer, it is your 49th. So this is officially the 50th. So it is a big milestone for us. And I'm glad, Joe, that you are on. And it's a big milestone. You just hit the big 50 not that long ago.
I did just a couple weeks ago. So I am serendipitously here for your 50th episode. I think that's
right.
Perfect.
I think that is perfect. And I turned 50 last year and I felt like 50th is a whole year of celebration. So
yes,
just keep
absolutely.
going. Keep celebrating all year long. So Joe, I'm so glad you're on, and I love your URL. It's Discover Joe Self, and it's JO, right? It's not short for Joanna. It's not short for anything. It's just Discover Joe Self SELF.com. And I'm glad you're on. So welcome. Love your name. And I'm just going to hand it over to you. Tell us about your entrepreneurial journey. Just give us that 30,000 foot of Joe.
It has been a journey. I have been on my own in the freelance entrepreneurial world since 2007, actually. So I left the corporate world in 2007. And my first journey was to, I haven't. I really haven't. And I even, I thought about it and I was like, oh my gosh, I have been 16 years trying to figure this out on my own. So it has been an evolution. It has been a journey. I have not done the same thing the whole time. My first step out was really taking my experience from the corporate world. I worked in employee programs. So I ran the culture for young brands. And so a lot of that was creating activities, calendars, and keeping people engaged and trying to think of fun things to do. So I just took that knowledge and I translated it over to a business called Bon Vivant Savant, Live Well, Live Wisely. And I started doing various events around Louisville to bring charities and small businesses and lesser known chefs and food and fun all together through events like supper speakeasies and wine and wisdoms and nibbles and sips and picnics and flicks. And so I just created an event calendar for the community, really, to come together and enjoy. And that was awesome.
And Joe, and for those that don't know what Yum Brands represent, these are very well-known brands.
Yeah, Yum Brands is the largest fast food restaurant company in the world. And they are the parent company to Pizza Hut, Taco Bell, and KFC. And they also had Long John Silver's and A&W while I was there. So that is no more, but they did.
But it was people don't know it's Yum Brands, but yeah, it's a big company. Yeah. Big brands.
Yeah. Yeah. It was great. I loved that job. Honestly, I loved that job, but I outgrew it. and I wasn't getting a chance to sort of explore where I needed to explore. So I left on great terms. I still talk to my, old boss to this day, 16 years later. And there's been no, hard feelings or anything. I'm still in contact with a lot of people from those days, actually.
Yeah.
So I managed to do that for about 3 years. And then when I turned 37, which also seems like not that far long ago, but it was, when I turned 37, just a side note, that happened to be how old my mom was when she passed away. So I was like 11 when my mom passed, and she passed away at 37. And so at 37, I had known I wanted to live outside the US for a long time. And so when 37 hit, I was like, I got to do something. I got to make some changes. And so I applied for a job at Texas Roadhouse, and I applied for a job to work at a hostel on a beach in Punta del Diablo, Uruguay for $300 a month and room and board. And I thought, well, let's just see which way the world wants to take me. And I got through the third round of interviews for the Texas Roadhouse job, and I didn't get it. And I got the job on a beach. And so I put my house up for sale, sold almost everything, and took off for Uruguay when I was 37, managing a hostel on the beach near the Brazilian border.
What an adventure.
So not quite entrepreneurial, but I thought, I really would like to run a B&B or something like this one day, so I can either go to school for hotel management, or I can just go do it and get out of the country and take that first step. So that's what I did. And eventually that led me back to Peru, where I had been once before in 1995. I did a semester of study abroad there. And I met a girl from Peru while I was at the hostel. She said, well, if you like it so much, why aren't you there? Well, that's a really good question. So I found a job doing marketing for a tourism company in Cusco, and bought a one-way ticket and just took my chances.
Yeah.
And I wasn't really happy doing that. And so I ended up starting my own tourism business. We actually won a grant from ADEX, which is basically the Ministry of the Exterior in Peru. And we won a top 50 startup in Peru and won a small grant to help us get started. And so for about 3 years, I ran Authentic Peru while I was there, but I got bored. It was too repetitive. I didn't, it brought me something for a while, but then it just got too repetitive. It wasn't as creative as I needed it to be. I had tried to extend the Bon Vivant model down in Lima, but the culture didn't respond the same way. So it was a challenge. So I just had to let that go. And then I had a very small week-long scare while I was waiting for some results to come back to see if I had cancer or not, which I did not. So all was good. I was about 42. This was back in 2015. And so that whole week of wondering, what next? Do I have a month? Do I have a year? Do I have 10 years? What am I going to do with it?
Right.
And I had fallen in love with Clifton Strengths way back in 2003. And I thought, I need to start using this somehow more proactively in my life. I want to do something with it. I don't know what, but I want to do something.
Yeah.
And I got certified by Gallup. I went to Mexico City to get my certification. I was one of the first Spanish certified Clifton Strengths coaches out there in the world. And that's been all I have done ever since then, which has led to this beautiful place that I am now.
Yeah, because you're in Mexico City.
I am in Mexico City and doing something I love in a way that I love to do it. So it's been a journey. It's been an evolution.
So tell us where you are now, and you're a consultant for Clifton Strengths. What
Yes.
is that? Why? Tell us about that and what you do and how you help others.
Right. So Clifton Strengths, the short version is Clifton Strengths is an assessment. It used to be known as Strengths Finder. So some people out there might know it as Strengths Finder and have taken the assessment. Okay. It measures 34 innate talents. Yeah. It measures 34 innate talents that people can have. Awesome. Right. Good. Yay.
Yeah.
One more person out there. We just hit 30 million. They just turned 30 million people have taken their Clifton Strengths assessment. So it's amazing what's happened in just a few years, actually. And it measures your innate talents. And basically, there are 10 to 15 dominant talents that every person has, and it's the only way you know how to show up. It's the easiest way for you to show up, and it's also where your weaknesses lie. So just because they're a talent doesn't mean you're wielding them in a positive way, right? But it helps give us awareness. And so I love the language of it. And so where I started with Clifton Strengths years ago is I created a personal branding canvas based on strengths. So I created a strengths branding canvas, basically sort of on the lean model of, the business model, the lean brand, business model of sort of moving and being flexible. I created a strengths branding canvas. And now that program is called The Language of You. It's gone through its own evolution, but the program is basically the same. It's called The Language of You. And for me, it really helps us understand not just why we are the way we are, but why
Mhm.
we're here and what we're supposed to be doing on this earth. It really guides so much of who we are. And when we go through this life in a bit of unconscious state, when someone says, JJ, why do you do that? And you go,
Yeah.
I don't know. Doesn't everybody do that? Right? Like you don't really know how to answer that question, but it could be a
Right.
positive side and it could be, oh my God, you are so good at that. How did you get so good at that? And you're thinking, doesn't
Yeah.
everybody do that? Like I feel like that's really easy. Like I'm not doing much of anything. But
Right.
for other people, it's really crazy how easy it happens for you. Knowing your strengths fills in that blind spot so that you can go, oh, that's why I smile at everybody. Oh, that's why I can't stop asking people questions.
Right. Right.
Oh, that's why I come off as a negative person when I'm really not.
Right. 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 And
Right.
even uncovering the weaknesses, right? Like, okay,
Yeah.
I thought this was a strength. This is clearly like these are my strengths. These are not. um,
Right. And
and
it's not really that, right? It's when you have your weaknesses are truly in your strengths. So if you have
yeah.
high discipline means you need structure, you need expectations that are clear, you need a way to live. Discipline as a weakness means you expect everybody to do everything the way you do it, and there is no better structure, and you try to impose it on other people, or you're so inflexible that you can't change what you do to fit and modify someone else. And so that's two sides of one
Mhm.
talent, right? So having that awareness allows you to start going, oh, this is not serving me in my highest good. How do I switch that? How do I flip that switch
Right.
so that I am aiming it appropriately? And so a lot of who I worked with initially were entrepreneurs. That's the space I
Yeah.
love to be in, is with entrepreneurs and service providers, because there's so much imposter syndrome that keeps us from moving forward. And that idea that I don't know enough, I'm not good enough, I've never been there. How do I work with
Right.
corporations when I've never been in a corporation? All these little fears that come up. When you can mold yourself around your talents, you don't just know who you are, you start to value who you are. And when you value who
Mhm.
you are, that's where the confidence creeps up naturally.
Yep. Yep. And it's interesting you say that out, going through some self-discovery on our own of, I'm a founder of Orange Whip, but before that I founded a full service marketing and advertising agency in 2013, um,
Mhm.
which is still operating and I still, lead that. And what we had found was there were things that I made, or our whole team, we were making assumptions of, oh, well, this is how we, here's our tools, here's processes. You guys are smart people. They're giving us like thumbs up. But what we found is um, those those weren't being used, or maybe they didn't understand the intention or the
Right,
purpose that made us uniquely us. And even talking to
right,
clients, recently they're like, I could tell when those systems and tools weren't being used because it it created a different energy. Like it no longer
right,
became Brightco. And so having to like regroup with our team to go, these things, they served a purpose. And that's what created our brand. But it's really those are the things as the founder, those were things that were uniquely why I create, why we made the company unique. It's
right.
part of, my DNA that has been infused in this brand. And I didn't have, I guess, the confidence, or I don't know what it was. It's like these are just like I call them duh moments of shame on me for
Yeah,
not feeling like I could be more adamant of. I was saying, well, these are best practices. And I should have, when I brought people on board a year ago, it should have been no, no, no. These are these are mandatories. These are why we're
right,
successful. This is the
right,
intention behind these things. This is what makes us unique. And it's because of why I created the company. And, another coach kind of came in and was like, Jennifer, they're like, JJ, you should have been more, you thought of onboarding people as like an orientation, not as truly onboarding them thoroughly through over like a 90
Right.
day, 6 month, really more intensive to get people to understand that depth of
Right.
what your company is, but more importantly, why you created the things that you did and why there's intention behind those things. What's that purpose? And I'm sitting there going, I'm a branding person, and I'm like,
But
I
here's the thing.
like I
What
should
I
have
say is
known
I
that.
created a me for me, right? I became a me for me because I wish I'd had somebody who could have shown me those mistakes I was going to make, right?
Yeah.
So how can I help you make better mistakes? I'm not going to say don't make any mistakes. I just want you to make
Because we're gonna
better
make them.
mistakes. I want you to make more thoughtful mistakes. I want you to
Right.
avoid obvious pitfalls that you don't have to do. Make a different mistake and make that a
Yeah.
valuable one. Don't make
Yeah.
this mistake and make it something that could have been avoided. Right.
So
And so that's where I like to come in, and the communication thing, like what you're talking about. I'd love to know your strengths. If you happen to know them, I would love to know. But it's one of the reasons that led me down a path of where teaching strengths as a second language has become my mantra, because it's not just about personal development. It's about having 34 words, 34 vocabulary words, like inculcated into your vocabulary so that you can not only see yourself more objectively and understand what might be happening when you're stressed or when you're successful, but you can also look at someone else and go, oh, that has nothing to do with me. That is their need. That's their analytical showing up. That's something that,
yeah.
okay, how do I work with them through that, into that communication? So when you're onboarding maybe a way that you would want to be onboarded, because maybe you like a little more autonomy, a little more flexibility, you trust in
Right.
imagination, you trust in positive intention, but maybe you're onboarding people high in executing talents and they need clarity and expectations and and all this other stuff. So
Right.
knowing those talents helps you show up for them in a way that makes them more successful as well.
Yeah. You are absolutely
Right.
right. So let me ask you, so there's so many of the, different strength finders and personality tests. There's cognitive, there's
Mhm.
conative, there's, all those. By the way, I was a predictive index trainer and
Uh-huh.
assessor
I
at
like
one
PI.
time,
Yeah, it's good.
the PI. But I liked the depth of strength finders or Clifton strengths. But
Yeah.
when you kind of looked at that landscape, was it the depth of the strength finder or the Clifton strengths that you preferred, or like what really was the connector for you?
For me, so I took the assessment the very first time in 2003. So like I've been doing this for 20 years in
You've been
some way, shape,
okay.
or form. So I've been doing this for 20 years. Now, I really like DISC as a complement
Yeah.
to strengths. Other people find other assessments, but for me, it's like when you build a house, you need a really good blueprint, you need a really good foundation. And for me, that is strengths because it
Mhm.
gives you the language to make sense of everything else. So if my DISC profile says I'm an influencer, and I go, okay, well, that's interesting and that's really nice information, but there's only like, I don't remember how many categories for DISC, but like with Myers-Briggs, there's only
Right.
16 different categories. With
Right.
DISC, there's a few more, but not that many more. So you're really grouped and it's very generic, which is fine. It gives you a guide. It is something to get you moving.
Right.
Strengths comes in and sort of dissects what that means. So I'm an influencer in DISC. Well, I have 5 talents in my top 10 that are in the influencing domain. So, well, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And what's pushing me there and why do I need that? And so I love the simplicity of language. When I took the assessment, it literally was like I got a user's guide for myself.
Hmm.
And so it was that when somebody says, why do you do this? I could finally say, why do you smile at everyone? Why do you talk to everyone? Well, I have woo and I have positivity, and it is important to me to make great connections. And I love to look at solutions. And I mean, that sounds much stronger in an interview than like, I don't know, I'm just a people person,
Yeah.
right? Like,
That was so that's right.
right? Like, okay, great. You're a people person. What does
Yeah.
that mean?
What does that
No, I
mean?
just really
Yeah.
like people. What does that mean? Well, let me tell you what that means, right? And strengths gives me that language to spell it out more clearly in a more powerful way. And so that's why I use it a lot with, building content and messaging for entrepreneurs when I work with individuals. That's one space
Yeah.
that I work in, is with individuals, and mostly working with people who are struggling to get themselves out there. And I look
Yeah.
at marketing a little bit backwards, but I want somebody to know that Sorry for the motorcycle. I want
Yeah.
someone to know that they can show up as their best self so that they keep showing up versus trying to do things the way someone says it has to be done and
Yeah.
then feeling defeated and like they can't do it and they're not cut out for it, which might be true, but often is not.
Right.
It's just you've picked sort of the wrong path to go down to make this happen. So how do we get you back on the
It,
right path?
is that where I'm just curious of, you're working with a lot of entrepreneurs and founders. What do you find is the biggest challenge for them? Is it like you said, just showing up and understanding their strengths, or is it when
Permission to be
they
themselves. I
okay,
have one program, my initial program that I bring people into, which is called the Language of You, is like a 4-part module. I do it in different
mm,
styles. Everything I build can be like shifted, modularized,
okay,
whatever I need it to be, right? But that's my key program that I bring most people in under. And it weaves your talents with what you do best, with your motivations, with your values, and then they weave this into a fabric that kind of becomes your legacy and your brand. What do you want people saying about you when you're not in the room? What's the
okay,
impression you want to leave behind? What's going to make you motivated? And I would say 90% of the people finishing that class say, oh my gosh, I finally feel like I have permission to be me.
huh,
Like that weirdness is a good thing. That
yeah,
quirkiness is a good thing. That I'm not doing this wrong. I'm just doing it my way. And this is the way I'm going to keep showing up.
right.
So that's the biggest thing is they just get, and it's, I don't think it's as much about conquering imposter syndrome as just truly valuing that maybe we're not so bad after all, right? Maybe
Right.
we actually got something here.
Right. So it's more of that building that self-confidence, that self-identity, because probably as a founder, if you're coming out there and you read, you need to look like this CEO, or you need to look like this, leader within your company. And a lot of the founders and entrepreneurs, like we're experts in our space, right? In the category. We're not
Yeah,
necessarily the best at running the company. We're
right.
learning how to run the company and how to grow people and manage people. But in our, because that was a big shift for me. Of I was managing 40, 50 people at before I left and founded my own company. But it was interesting of once it's your own company, the it wasn't the same. Like it was much
Right.
easier to manage under somebody else's brand, under their organization. Even like dealing with clients and customers was so much easier when I look back. And I've heard this from a ton of founders of, that was the biggest shift of, oh my gosh, no, 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 I'm accountable for everything. This is, you
Right.
know, it's hurtful when people leave. You take it very personal if, um,
Right.
when people, exit out. So it's, that's a repetitive, uh, piece of communication or message that we've heard over and over and over again. And I love the idea of the course of it's okay. Like we're all unique. That's what made us, that's what started your company. That's what's going to grow the
Yeah.
company. Um,
Yes.
but how do you lead, I guess, knowing your brand identity and knowing yourself, how to lead from that.
Well, finding your way to lead to that is knowing what's going to complement you best. So you
Mm,
don't hire a bunch of yous because hiring a bunch of yous is not going to help,
does not work.
right? That's not going to help.
No.
Now, you also don't want someone who is totally contradictive to what you're going for, so you need shared vision. You need someone who has the buy-in, right? But you also need support in different spaces. So who can support the vision, but from their not just their skills and abilities, but from their talents, right? What they bring to the table, where they love to show up, where are they going to be the most
Mm,
productive in doing that? And that's where the other side of the coin that I work with is I work with a lot of leaders and teams in building that team effectiveness around understanding the door that
okay.
everyone's coming into the room from, right? We've all got the room. The room is the vision. The room is the purpose. The room is where we want to be, but we're all coming at it from a different space and supporting it. And my door is no better or no worse than your door.
Right.
It's just what I'm bringing to the table to make this successful. And so when a leader has clarity of their leadership style, of how they show up, of what's important to them, of what their liabilities are. And when I say a liability is if you take a talent like self-assurance or command, they can
Right.
come in and feel like a dictator. You add an election on top of that, they come in, they tell you what to do, and then they go back and close their door and they need time alone. And then you're like, oh my God, this is the most unapproachable. But that's them showing up. That's possibly them under pressure,
Yeah.
just doing what they need to do to have control. But if they know they have command, and I have that as a talent myself, so it's one of those things. I know that the door is always cracked. You can always come in and challenge me. You can always say you disagree with me. I welcome it. I
Right.
want you to. I want people to be thinking for themselves. But I don't often make it obvious that it's really easy to do.
Right.
And if I'm stressed, even less so. So if a
Right.
leader can do that, then there's ways to work with them to say, okay, the next time you have a meeting, if there's one person you know that's really comfortably challenging you, because often these leaders say, like, nobody challenges me. Like, well, are you letting them? Are
Right.
you showing them that it's easy to do? Are you giving them the possibility? Or are you just assuming they're going to do it because it's what you would do? And they're often like, oh, I guess I just assume they'll do it, right? Okay, great. So now we've got awareness.
Hmm.
So what are we going to do? Is there one person that you feel comfortable that does challenge you or does occasionally, give you different ideas? Oh yeah, Bob's like that. Great. Okay, so you and Bob are going to plan at the next meeting that Bob is going to challenge you in front of everyone and you're going to respond and you're going to show that you're open and that's what it looks like. Not role play, you don't have to make anything up, but like show them by
But
example, or have Bob just show up and do it, or say, hey, who disagrees with this? Who wants to challenge this? Do you have a
right.
different idea? This is just what I know based on my experience.
That's
And that
right.
ability to have just a little bit of vulnerability is going to make a world of difference. But if you don't know that about yourself, it's harder to modify.
Right. Yep. That's what we've talked before with a couple other founders of the importance of because that helps build trust within the team. That
Yeah.
meetings should have debate. There should be
Yes.
discussion. There shouldn't be, meetings should not be silent. That's the
Yeah.
worst. Like when you're, especially as a, manager or leader of you come in and you're like, okay, let's go over this. And then you're the only one talking. And it's like, no, we need the debate. It needs to be, and if, and allowing people, and that's kind of as you're building the culture of it's okay to have an opinion and have a perspective. If you're not using your opinion and your perspective, then you're actually hurting the company. You're hurting
Right.
the team by
Yeah.
not showing up.
100%.
Yeah. So what has been the most rewarding aspect of your whole journey and now the journey you're on? I mean, you've written a book. I want to talk about the book. You've 3 books.
3 books.
3
I
books.
have
Okay,
3
so
books.
let's
Yeah.
pause there. Let's just so talk to me about the books you've written.
So where this journey has taken me now is I'm now evolving a little bit more. I made a proposal to Gallup a few years ago for a license to use their IP to start a book series. And that book series is called Practical Strengths. Because
Okay.
one of the things I think that's lacking out there in the strengths world is there's a process that Gallup names that's called name it, claim it, aim it. So it's name your talents, know what they are. Claim it means owning them, really understanding it and absorbing it. And then aim it is how do we use these effectively and in a positive manner to have better impact, right? So you're using those. But so many times we go name it, aim it. But if I hand you a book that tells you how to develop a website and you've never developed a website, it doesn't matter that it's in English. There are words that you're just going to be like, this means
That's right.
nothing to
Nothing.
me.
That's
So
right.
if I tell you, okay, you have empathy as a talent, tell me how that shows up in your life. I don't even know what that means. So how do I tell you a story about it if I don't even know what it means?
Right.
Right. So there's got to be a teaching element to it. So practical strengths for me is the other part is strength shows up in leadership and organizations and 4-5. And so,
Yeah.
but nobody's talking about the fact that it shows up in parenting or how you choose to manage a health and fitness plan
Right.
or how you
Your
develop your career,
relationships. Yeah.
your relationships. Right. So nobody's talking about those day-to-day spaces where your talents don't go away. They're always a part of you and they
Right.
need to shift. They've got to take a different volume. So just because maybe you're showing up in a successful way at work, the way you show up at work is not necessarily going to make you successful at home.
Right.
And somebody's going to be like, hey, I am not your employee. You need to stop talking to me like that. Or you might show up really well at home and then not be able to translate that to the workspace because you think you're supposed to show up a different way, right? So that awareness of where to modify, how to modify is really important. And so so currently the first one was on parenting. The second one was on career success.
Okay.
The third one was on communication styles, which is my area of expertise. That's what I love to dive into most with it. And so the career success book will tell you what to look for. So like, what kind of environment are you going to thrive in? What are the elements you need to make you successful on the job? So it's what to look for, then how to look for it, because no one's going to network the same way. Right. And then what to communicate in the interview on your resume, how to show value for what you bring to the table based on who you are for the position, and then, early success on the job. So how to either tune down, tune up, whatever you need to do to take that talent and be really successful in the first few weeks. And then the communication style says, this is how you recognize it. This is how we all talk, but we don't necessarily think about what we're saying or how we're saying it because it's so natural for us. But our talents can give us clues. So my command forgets to ask questions. I just tell. Doesn't mean I don't. In my mind, there's a question mark often at the end of it, or there was a, hey, could you help me with this? But I'm often like, hey, can you do that? Or hey, do that? Or hey, not me at my best. But it shows up that way because I just expect you to challenge me back. It also becomes a voice for other people when people are too scared to ask the question. I'm the one they come to be like, hey, will you talk to so-and-so and ask? Yes, I will do that. Right? Like, it's fine. But so it's how to recognize it. Like, what are the patterns? What are you generally doing in your communication style? And then it's how it might frustrate others. And it's a general frustration. And then there's, if it's an executing domain, there's 4 domains of talents. If you're executing, it's how does it frustrate influencers, and how does it frustrate relationship builders, and how does it frustrate strategic thinkers? So like they might all have a different nerve point.
Right.
And then there's something to consider. So here's a probable pattern that shows up frequently that's probably not helping you out, and something to consider and how to modify that. And then if you're working with someone or living with someone, or you're with someone who has this talent and you don't really understand it, there's questions on how to connect with them better, how to open those communication channels so they actually hear what you have to say, and tips on things to do for them, how to give them what they need in order to make a deeper connection through that. So, and I'm working on 2 more books right now. I'm working on a manifesto, which is 34 words that can change the world. And I'm looking at case studies of practical everyday spaces where strengths is having an impact, and how something so simple can make such a big change and big impact in different spaces like education and family and small business, nonprofit.
So you've seen a lot. Of a variety of personalities and teams, and so I'm curious, so what is your greatest aha moment for you personally as a entrepreneur and someone that enters in that space? What has been your greatest aha moment?
I think I might go with 2. The first thing that comes to mind is something that I've really noticed lately, especially in working with a lot more teams, but also for myself, is often something that makes us incredibly successful is also something that's holding us back in another space. So we're probably aiming it really well in one space and aiming it 100% wrong in another space. So and if we can just see that and go, all right, this is the shift I need to make, right? And I have exercised yet. So that's one thing. Specifically as an entrepreneur, I think it's been giving myself the permission, but also helping others have the permission truly to do a business in a way that truly fits them, that doesn't take them down a path of, this is what I should be doing, this is what I've been told to do. Because somewhere deep down, even if you're doing it for the right reasons and believe it's the right thing to do, somewhere deep down, you've got that little knot in your stomach that just says, there's got to be a different way. This is not sitting well with me. Right. And giving people permission to say things like, I had a coach years ago I was talking with, and one of the things he came up with at the end of the class is he said, I want to be known as the Johnny Appleseed of happy thoughts. I was like, oh my God, that is your business card. You put that down as your tagline. You put it on paper that's like plantable seed paper. You hand it out. You put a nice, I was like, he was like, I can't do that. I was like, yes, you can. Nobody else is claiming that space. That's amazing. Like, you have to do that. And it took him like 3 years to like get to, but every time he would have an aha, he'd call me and be like, I know you're going to say I told you so, but I just want to tell you, I did this and done it.
I
It
did
was
it.
really successful. And I'm like, all right. So it took him a while to get comfortable with the idea, but really that ability to get comfortable with your weirdness. Honestly, that's a
Yeah.
huge thing.
And is that been your aha, like the Clifton Strengths and that love language and all that? That's been your that's your heart, right?
It is. It is 100%. I mean, I don't. It sounds weird. I always say I don't know how to talk to you if I don't know your strengths, which is not true. I talk to lots of people, but I can. If you want advice from me, it is very hard for me to give generic advice to steer you down. I can give you a couple of
Yeah.
things, but if I know who you are, then I can give you more specific tools and help you see where you're running into walls and what might be happening that you maybe have missed. And
Hmm.
so I have strategic and I have ideation. And so I very quickly come down paths and options. And so when you're talking to me about something, I'm hearing these patterns and different things are pinging. And I'll go, you've
Oh,
said this 3 times, and I don't think it's true, because you're telling me something that you're not, but you are 100% that person. So what is suddenly making you say you're not this person, but you are? I can see that you are. And you're
right.
like, oh, well, I don't think it's very valuable in this space. And I really don't know that I bring anything to the table. I'm like, what do you mean? Are you kidding me? That's like a
Right.
whole new messaging. Like, that's amazing. This is what you do with it. And this is what you could do with it. How does this sound? They're like, oh, well, when you put it that way, like, yeah, like,
Yeah.
let's look at it. Let's reframe it. Right. So I love those aha moments to just kind of expose something that someone maybe hasn't considered or hasn't really valued as
Hmm.
something that is 100% worthy of being considered and potentially using.
Yeah. What's been what's been your biggest oh shit moment? Like, uh-oh. Like,
Oh
oh
my
crap,
goodness.
I don't belong in Peru. Was that one of them?
That you know, I I have spent a lot of money doing all the wrong things because
Why do you
I
say
didn't have
that?
what I needed. Well, like when I first started, I went out to get a website, and this is 2007. So, things were still developing. WordPress was still a little baby, and, I had some things out there. And I went to different companies to help me with branding and imaging and getting the website built. And everything I thought I had communicated, I got quoted, first of all, $12,000. That was like the round rough number at the time, was $12,000. And I was like,
Mhm.
I just want to be able to use WordPress and have something and have a template and do this. And they were like, okay, well, this is what we're gonna do. And then every time I needed a change or did something, it was $250 for this and $250 for that. I'm like,
Yeah, yeah.
I'm just one little person. I am not a big corporation. Like, I do not have years and years of savings to like keep failing and doing this. So I taught myself Photoshop and I taught myself how to do WordPress, and I eventually started doing web. And it was something that I ended up offering my clients, not because I was great at it, but because I was better than they were.
Right.
And because I'm listening to who they are and I want them to show up in a way that makes
Huh.
them proud and
Yeah.
feels aligned with who they are versus some cookie box. This is what I think you need. And like, it was just, it was frustrating. So I had
Yeah.
to learn a lot. And so I think, it led to me creating a webinar that was like, the 6 biggest mistakes I made as an entrepreneur. So you don't have to make them too.
What were
Right.
the
Because
what were those 6? What were those big 6 ones?
don't spend money you don't have to spend. No, you don't need a website to get started.
Oh.
Don't have an avatar, especially if you're a service
Hmm.
provider. I'm very big. This is probably where I would butt heads with a lot of people in marketing and maybe with you. I don't know. It is. I, I'm not saying there's not an avatar out there. I think we get so caught up in, okay, I think my client is this 20 to 30-year-old woman who is trying to juggle having a career and developing herself, but doesn't know if she wants a family, blah, blah. Like, okay, that's all great. But generally speaking, as a coach in this space, and that's a lot of who I work with, your avatar is a previous version of you. It
Hmm.
is something you have gone through that you suffered from, that you wish somebody had been there to help you. And now you can help them because you found solutions. You found a way, you found something to do. And then it'll kind of organically grow. I set out to work with entrepreneurs and startups because I
Hmm.
wanted them to have
That.
the basis they need to build a strengths based culture, to build something successful and sustainable based on that kind of belief. I looked at wanting to work with angel investors and incubators and things like that too, to say, hey, we can help your people be more successful by bringing this in there. But my contacts weren't that great. It was tough to break in. And because of what I created, strengths coaches became my, that were trying to start a business that just spent a
Yeah.
bunch of money on their certification and didn't know what to do. And they had no help or no, so it organically grew. So I think you have to be willing to experiment and go, I didn't set out for coaches to be my market. It's what happened because of who I am and where I came from and what I did. Now I can't just go out there blind either, but I didn't say it's, 40 to 50-year-old women who want to be coaches who are looking for a second.
Right.
That's not what happened.
Right.
Right. So I think that's, it's to get your message down, because your message is what makes you magnetic.
That's right.
So whatever you're really passionate about is what's going to attract the right people to you. And the people who aren't attracted to you are like, well, that's really silly. And you go, well, that's all right. You're not my people. You're not my people. That's okay. You need something else. You don't need me.
It's a rule of thumb of, if you're trying to target everybody, you target no one. So figure out your unique selling proposition and your value, and you will connect with the right people.
But so many people approach it from their voice and not yours.
Yeah.
And what's going to make you show up every day is being passionate about what you have to say. And they're like, oh, don't talk about you, talk about them. And I'm like, well, you should be about them. It should be about how you identify with them, how they can relate to you. So it's not just a me show, but it is man, if you're anything like me, you've suffered or struggled or done with this too. And I didn't know how I was going to get out of it until I did this. And this is what helped me. And now I want to help you do the same thing in a shorter time frame than what it took me to do it.
That's right. So what would be your biggest advice to, founders, entrepreneurs, and whether it's in a, startup or a scale up kind of, mode of they started a company, they have people, they're scaling up to be an enterprise. What's your biggest advice to them?
Create a strengths-based culture. It is only going to serve you, and especially if you can make it sustainable. Take the assessment, get a coach. I'm not even saying call me, just get a coach, get someone who knows strengths, get someone who knows your space, and help you build that in. Because I think what happens also, especially when you're scaling up and doing something much grander than just being, a single person or a small consulting company, is you get a lot of pressure, numbers, delivery, shareholders or stakeholders, depending on what your perspective is. I'm a big believer in conscious capitalism, so I look at it through that lens. But know who you are as a leader. Know what your purpose is. Make sure when you onboard people, you know that. When you're hiring through strengths, you are seeing what people are really going to bring to the table, and you're not just kind of hopeful based on a few things they said. I think it's really important because it's going to give a stronger foundation, because we all start with a big why. Every entrepreneur starts trying to solve a problem that they believe in incredibly. And I think that can get lost if they don't have that deep connection and that language to help bring it back to them when it's necessary.
Yeah. That's good. And you're recommending people to do that assessment before you hire somebody, or like
you can hire someone who does that assessment, right? So you can hire someone, because sometimes they have a coaching package and it'll include the assessment. The assessment itself for the full 34 report is $60. It's $59.99. You can get just your top 5. If you are a founder or an entrepreneur, I do not recommend doing just top 5. None of us are just top 5 dominant talents. We're all 10 to 15. And to know what's at the bottom, if you suddenly see discipline at your bottom and you're like, how am I ever going to run a company if I don't have discipline? You get to let it go and figure out how you create the structure. You might have a ranger, you might have delivery, you might have other things that are going to be helpful. It's just not going to be done the way discipline does it. And that's not a bad thing. And maybe if it's something you need, to hire someone who can bring that to the table.
Yep. No, that's good.
Right.
So what keeps you up at night, Joe? What do you struggle with?
Building my business to be an actual business. That's where I struggle, because I don't have discipline high. I don't have those things. I am a touchy-feely influencing person for my strengths. And so while I do get things done, and while I am very strategic, I am currently bringing in collaborators on my books. My books are currently being translated into 4 other languages. I'm building partnerships in other countries. And I had to come up, I was like, I need a contract. So it's become a memorandum of understanding, because I can handle that. but it builds out clarity. What's the expectation on my part? What's my deliverable? What's their deliverable? What are the shares? What are that? But I'm going to tell you, creating that memorandum of understanding took me to a place that was very, very dark.
Hmm.
And I was like, can I do this? Am I supposed to do? Maybe I'm just going to give up writing the books. Maybe I'm going to give up my entire vision and dream because this is hard.
Yeah.
And now I'm looking at a trademarking process, and I'm looking at like
It's-
getting those things in line and making sure the business, because I've been a freelancer. So getting that, I've built a practical strengths mastery network, which is for both coaches, for both people who work with strengths, but also people who just want to know their strengths better and apply them in their lives. So I'm building this whole network. So I'm building a business, I'm building a certification program, I'm building all these things. I'm like, that is scary.
Yeah.
That is terrifying.
It
so
is.
That is what keeps me up at night. And, so I'm looking for my support that can help me do that right now. That's because it's what I need to get to the next level. And I can't give it up. It's too much a piece of who I am.
No, it
so
can't.
I've just got to figure out how to get through that and find the right partner to help me do it.
Yeah, because especially you bring a lot to that, and how do you package that and create your business? It's you sell uniquely you, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. So what gets you out of bed in the morning?
Man, connecting with people and doing strengths. I just that and getting a chance to be creative. And so the space I love most when I'm working with coaches, it's great to help them absorb their strengths and get it. But I kind of love the next piece of the puzzle, which is becoming a strategic partner or collaborator with them and helping them design things. Because I have 1,000 ideas in my head and they cannot all be mine, and I can't make all of them a reality. So the fact that I get to share my ideas with people who might make it a reality and might be a great fit for them, but something I can't do, so exciting.
Yeah.
I love it. I love that piece.
Well, and I could continue talking to you. We might need to have to do some sidebars, Jo.
Yeah, hey, I'm up for it.
Because I have like 1,000 ideas for your business, and I'm sure you'll have 1,000 ideas for mine.
Hey, let's have a conversation. I need somebody, so let's talk.
But we are out of time. But before we go, how can people best get a hold of you?
The best way to get a hold of me, honestly, you can look for me on LinkedIn. I'm Jo Self. Should be the first one that comes up, but my LinkedIn is just /Jo Self. You can reach me through my website, which is discoverjoself.com. My tags on Instagram and Facebook are also Discover Jo Self. Pretty easy to find me through those. And if you look up Practical Strengths Jo Self, definitely Google is going to head you in my direction.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you hanging out with me today and talking through everything. And I've learned a lot.
Yeah.
We will talk later.
Yes, we will. Yes, we will.
So I appreciate you joining us. But this podcast episode will be published again this coming Sunday and available on your favorite podcast platforms. So be sure to subscribe to Hello Chaos, like, comment, and share this great content. It helps us grow a more connective entrepreneurial community. And Hello Chaos, again, is one of the many resources brought to you by Orange Whip. Orange Whip is a multimedia company dedicated to serving founders and entrepreneurs in affiliate cities. We are in 3 cities today. That is in the upstate of South Carolina, Midlands of South Carolina, and Charleston of South Carolina, where we tell raw, honest stories through a hyper-local online platform, which is a one-stop content hub that is part storyteller, part how-to guide. We have a local resource directory, a curate events calendar, and a social chatter wall. So if you're in these markets, it is a one-stop shop for you as a founder to find everything that you need to have to help you move along your journey. We are hoping to expand to 6 markets within the next 12 months. I think we want to be in 15 cities in 3 years, 30 cities in 5 years. So we have aspirations. We've got goals, but we do need your support. If you'd like to be a guest on our podcast, head over to orangewhip.com. And again, that's orangewhip.com, and fill out the form on the Hello Chaos page. And while you're there, go ahead and subscribe to our weekly WHIP newsletter. We are ad supported through sponsored native content. Our content is free, it's accessible, so no paywalls, and it's inclusive because we are addressing the full spectrum of innovation and entrepreneurship. So you see a very diverse stories of different founders. And if you're interested in becoming a sponsor and supporting us, please email us at hello@orangewhip.com. Thank you for tuning in to Hello Chaos. It is again where aha meets oh shit. I'm your host, Jennifer Sutton, and we will see you again next week. Thank you all.